These messages I've been getting in this morning have been very, very interesting, and someone sat there saying, Dave, you forgot it's a very special day. And we've been playing dumb, and it is May the 4th. It is also known as Star Wars Day, a celebration of the iconic Star Wars saga created by George Lucas. The film, A New Hope, released back in 1977, introducing audiences to the galaxy far, far away. It was followed by The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, Return of the Jedi in 1983. The story continued years after, with prequel trilogies taking all the way through, and a brand new one that's currently being filmed in and around Colville. And this is where I get to say hello to our special guest. You've been on the station before with Harry and Cam. Matt Holt, how are you?
These are not the toys you're looking for. Hello, how you doing? Good to be on air. This is fantastic. What's it? Live long and prosper. That's what we should say, isn't it? No, of course it's not. May the 4th be with you. Yes, Star Wars, Colville. Can you all remember it? Can you remember it, Dave?
Do you know what the best thing is? I can.
Good. I'm glad somebody can, because I've asked a few people, they're like, no, never heard of Palatoy. It's like, what?
Well, I wasn't born in 83. I was born in 84.
Okay, right.
So for me, it's one of those where...
the factory closed in 85, so you only had 1 year of your life to buy the figures.
Yep. Before
they disappeared. Yeah.
Well, how are you finding things, Matt? Because you've been out and about filming for. Now I've got to get this right because I keep mispronouncing it. So I do apologise because it is in a landfill far, far away, not in a town far, far away.
No, in a land. So like the joke, in a land far, far away. This is in a landfill far, far away. Because obviously, I can't call it the story of the buried Star Wars figures, or Mr. Disney will be on the phone first thing in the morning telling me to... So we can parody, we can refer to Palatoy, and we can talk about the buried Star Wars figures, which are obviously now antiques. But the Star Wars is not in the title, so it's left up to the viewer, the listeners at home, to put 2 and 2 together and make 12. But yeah, what a fantastic... I've really weird this morning. I had somebody contact me when the trailer went out for, May the 4th, Star Wars Day, and they were from America, and they said, that's a great name you came up with, Colville. How did you think of that? And I was like, I went, no, it's a real... The place is real. Colville's real. So people think, Superman, Smallville, Colville. It's got a great name. If you think about it, it's quite cinematic, the name. For people who don't live there, obviously, because we've grown up with it, so it's for us it's just a normal name. But Colville, the old mining town, that's like it's quite poetic when you think about it.
Well, the good news is this film, this mockumentary, this idea came because you have family ties, you're from the area, and history in the making. Explain like the story, the journey, because it's so interesting.
Well, I've not really spoken about my great grandfather, who was Billy Burton. He was a Colville comedian, and 100 years ago this month, folks, he took a caravan, so a horse-drawn cart that folded out into a stage, and he rode it from Colville to London and Hampstead Heath. By the time he got there, he'd drummed up enough followers. He played in front of 2,500 people. So 100 years ago, the general strike, he was a coal miner and a comedian, and he was raising money for the strikers. Now, the strike failed, but that went on to be the start of the Labour Party, and whatever your politics might be, national health and the welfare state and all that kind of came from that. So, my great grandfather was a coal mill comedian and coal miner. My grandfather, Keir Burton, was also a Colville coal miner and a comedian, but no, he wasn't on the stage. He was just in his spare time. That's kind of where I get it from. He introduced me to Laurel and Hardy and all that kind of thing when I was a kid. But also, my granny and my mum both worked at Palatoy, putting clothes on action men. So, yeah, the Action Man was the big thing before Star Wars. And then when Star Wars came out, that was the first film tie-in where the figures became hot property. And what was seen as a joke normally became... Well, we're still talking about it now, aren't we? I mean, the Star Wars figures, the franchise is still there. Quite famously, Alec Guinness managed to get 2.25% of the film. And, he rang... George Lucas rang him up because he originally thought he was getting 2.5% of the whole film. And he said, "Oh, I want to talk to you about my 2.5%," and they talked him down to 2.25%. But that was still £95 million.
that let's be honest, that's a lot of money even back then.
Yeah, well, even now, he's obviously he's long gone, but his estate keeps getting, the more these Star Wars things.
Yeah, every time. And how are you finding this? Because you're back on your home ground. You're back sort of filming, you're out and over. Like, we've seen loads of clips of you about where I love the fact that on Facebook someone goes, "Oh, what's this crew doing here? What are they filming?"
Yeah, well, I think it's funny. Somebody keeps saying, "Why are you walking around? You can't come in here with a spade." And I'm like, "This is a mining town. Of course we can come in here with a spade." but yeah, I'm not on my own. So I've got Flam Solo, who is Ryan Flamston, of course. People will know him. And I've got Luke Spade Digger, who is Colville's own Mark Hamill. That's his name, folks. His name is Mark Hamill. And I'm George Lucas and Matt Holt, the filmmaker. But yeah, I mean, the spirit of, Colville is a funny place. My great-grandfather was a comedian here. It is true. So I wanted to make this as a comedy because I thought if Mel Brooks can make Spaceballs 2 at nearly 100, I can make In a Landfill Far, Far Away at nearly 50. And we've had loads of help, loads of people... everywhere we go, really. There's a story. There's a little bit of a clue. There's people who work there, people who are coal miners, people who remember being kids at the time in the toy shops, being full of they're not knockoffs, but the factory had defects and things. Luke Skywalker, famously, his hair was painted the wrong colour. So there was loads of those that were just, they were sold in local shops. Palatoy had a great factory shop. I had the Millennium Falcon because of that factory shop. You couldn't get Millennium Falcons when they came out for love nor money, but if you went to the factory shop at Palatoy, you could get a dented box one, and I didn't care on Christmas Day. I was opening that box and throwing it away. Had I known what people know now, even the packaging is worth money.
Just that box alone, yep.
Just the box alone. But also, it's a great story. The artwork, the people that put all the time and effort into selling these toys, making these toys, the workforce. Unfortunately, it was a golden chalice, really, because it was so successful. They made so many, expanded so much. But then when George Lucas said, "Do you know what? 3's the limit. I'm not doing any more now." 1985, there was no more films on the way. Kids were looking towards Transformers, He-Man. They were moving on to other stuff. Unfortunately, I was the same. I didn't want Star Wars figures. I'd grown up a little bit. I wanted something else. So you could go into Woolworths and there would be a bag there with 5 Star Wars figures for £1. And if you bought that, ladies and gentlemen, and you kept that bag, that'd be worth a lot of money now. So if we find this stuff buried, it doesn't matter. This plastic is before the days of things breaking down from a point of view of good for the environment. You dig these things up, they're going to be in pretty good condition, folks, and especially if they've been buried in the baggies, in the carrier bags, which were around at the time. This stuff... in a landfill. It
doesn't degrade.
No, and also they put a layer of clay on. So, to keep the smell and everything, and these things get buried, you put a layer of clay on, and they've already dug up... There's a documentary out there where they've dug up a landfill from the 80s, and I kid you not, you can read the newspaper. The newspaper's not degraded. So,
even the Game Boy games and stuff like that, where they went and buried all the excess Game Boy games, they're still in workable condition.
Well, there's the famous documentary. It was kind of an inspiration, really. The famous documentary of the failed E.T. Atari game, which never got released. It was that bad. It looked nothing like E.T. It was nothing like the game. And it was for Atari, and they buried them all in the desert. And years later, somebody went and found them all, and they became a documentary, an expedition, and those things are worth money. And case in point, tomorrow I've been invited to Hanson's as an auction going on of Star Wars figures. Unfortunately, a collector passed away of a heart attack quite young, and his family have decided to sell his collection. Palatoy stuff is in there. There is a vinyl caped Jawa. Now, do you know what a vinyl caped Jawa is, Dave?
Well, I know what vinyl is, but I don't know...
Well, it's not a cape made out of records. But they released the first Jawa that came out had a vinyl cape. Now, vinyl is a type of plastic used in car materials and different things. It's like a faux leather kind of thing. So the first cape was that. It was a failure because it looked nothing like the Jawa. So they came out with a lovely cloth cape with a hood and all that kind of thing. Well, if you've got the vinyl cape Jawa, you're sitting on a pretty penny. And yeah, there's things like that. There's weird anomalies. The stuff that we're looking for, which is called the last 17. So these are the last 17 Star Wars figures that were made at Palatoy. That's the stuff that's going to be in the landfill, because
They never got sold.
No, we're getting desperate for characters as well. So a lot of the characters, like Yak Face, these people were hardly in the film at all. So they were desperately scrabbling around to bring out figures that the kids could collect, because they wanted to collect them all, a bit like Pokemon is now. It was the Pokemon of its day. So you had to collect them all. But they were just like background characters that spent 2 seconds on the screen. They'd become a character. But, you know, who wants the ghost of Anakin Skywalker? You can't really play. There's not much play value with that. You know, he's going to be in one scene. He's going to be, you know, a spirit. So, yeah, a lot of this stuff didn't sell at the time. Obviously ended up in the landfill. But now, it's
You're on the fine for it.
Yeah, it's very, very valuable. And, you know, it's a mining town. You guys are used to digging things up. I want to start a gold rush. I want to bring the Americans. Next year is 50 years of Star Wars, right? There'll be some of your listeners that went to the Rex Cinema and saw Star Wars and were in the town where they made these figures. I mean, what a great story. Boba Fett, the guy that played Boba Fett is from Leicestershire. You know, we've got a big connection. A lot of it was shot in Elstree in the UK. And the Muppets were involved. Jim Henson was involved with Yoda and all that kind of, and it was all filmed over here in the UK. So we've got a great history, a great heritage in Colville that has been disappearing for the last 40 years. Let's bring it back. If we can find one figure buried, you know, imagine that. We could have a parade around the town.
That would be worth more than anything.
Yeah, we could have a parade around the town. We could have it, you know, in a glass case. We could get the Americans over. We could rename some of the streets, have a party, put a statue up to one of the Star Wars figures, and yeah, let's celebrate what we had. You know, it's not the end of this story. This saga could continue.
There's 2 or 3 in this, isn't there? There really is.
Yeah, well, I'm only I'm only in it for the one. Like George Lucas, he actually handed off the directing to somebody else by the time we got to 2 and 3, and he stood in the background. So I'm more than happy to do that. I want to tell this story. It's 50 years next year. Let's, you know, it's a new hope. You know, we've had the New Hope. This is a new hope for Colville. Who knows? We could take this to Hollywood, play it over there. You know, they think Colville's made up. They think this is some papier-mâché town that I've put together for the purposes of this film. Let's show them that it's real. Let's show them that the history is real. And although I'm doing this tongue-in-cheek, because, you know, we need comedy right now. We need a laugh with all what's going on with the economy and everything else. Let's get people back in the cinemas. Let's show our sense of humour. But if we did find something, then the joke's on them. Let's be honest.
To be honest, I think we do miss a trick slightly. I reckon, you know, Christmas time, R2D2 and everything should be like plastered up the clock tower. There should be an R2D2 and CP3O.
C3PO. Yeah, don't get that wrong way around. That's someone's number plate.
Well, the worst thing is, at least said WD-40. You know what I mean? I could see that being
a great character. He was a great character, a very slippery character.
He was, yeah.
Yeah. He was often well oiled in the cantina bar. Yeah. We should, but also, you know, this toy factory ran for 100 odd years, so it goes all the way back to I think they made the windmills that you used to get at the seaside. That was the first thing they did. You remember the little tiny windmills that you used to get stuck in sandcastles? Oh,
the ones that you blow when they go round.
Exactly. So that was their first kind of thing, and then it led to Tiny Tears, which was a famous doll at the time. They did. Well,
Tiny Tears is still going, but in a different form.
Yeah, Action Man is the big thing. You know, Action Man, which became, you know, in America it was G.I. Joe, over here it was Action Man. It had the famous gripping hands that was modelled on Bob Breckin, who worked at Palitoy. You had the eagle eyes. But then, you know, when the Star Wars film came out, capitalised on that. And then after that was Action Force. I don't know if you remember Action Force, but they were, because Action Man was such a big doll and would kind of been selling since the 60s and had ran out of steam, they decided to bring out Action Force, which were the tiny little figures that were like, and that became the G.I. Joe figures, which carried on throughout the 80s. So, you know, there's a great, if you go now to Leicester Newark Museum, there's a great exhibition on that's running till September called May the Toys Be With You. And there is actually a Palitoy section where you can see a Palitoy work tie. If you're interested in that, you can see an actual tie. If you're interested in a TIE fighter, they've got one of those as well. And they've also got the poster for the original film. And go around there. Let's get your nostalgia going, and then maybe have a look in your loft or your shed or even your garden. If you find something, my email address is on the Inner Landfill Far Far Away Facebook page. We'll pop it up as well on social media for you as well. Drop me a line. We'll bring the boys round. We'll bring a spade. We'll have a cup of tea and see if we can find WD-40 or whatever his name was. Yeah, that's right, R2D2. We'll see if we can find him. And who knows, we may be in for a few percentages of the royalties.
Always makes me laugh with this old Palatoy story as well, that when you sit there and think about how they took the gamble to take it, because George Lucas was pushing it at the time.
Oh, yeah, nobody took him seriously. Nobody took him seriously at all. And even if we've been posting, on the run-up to this, we've been posting the Palatoy adverts, which they spent £600,000 making these adverts, and they're great. They're on YouTube, but we've posted them on our site as well. So they spent a lot of money on this, and it paid off because obviously, well, not obviously, but when George Lucas went to try and get the money for the second film, the banks in America still said no, even though the first film was a massive success. So he went to Kenner, that were owned by General Mills, who were the people in America making the Star Wars toys, and he got an advance on all the Star Wars toys for the new film, and that paid him to make the next film. So he got an advance on all the figures that he was going to release for Empire Strikes Back, and that paid for the second film. By the third film, I think he got enough money to carry on under his own steam. And obviously now, it's been sold to Disney and rebooted, and we've got Mandalorian coming out and all the other kind of stuff. So they did think this was going to have a short shelf life. It's still around today. I love the original films, obviously. They were influence on me as a kid, and I'm glad that I'm still here to tell this story. And hopefully there's people out there that, either saw the cinema film, played with the toys in Colville, maybe their family, relatives, grandfather, granny, uncles or whatever worked at Palatoy, and maybe there's some other stories to be told. It's not just the Star Wars figures that would have been buried. The factory was closed and dismantled and thrown away. There could be packaging, there could be tooling, there could be all sorts of things that were discarded, because in those days they weren't that sentimental. The film had run its course and was kind of out of fashion. But how wrong we were, because it's back in fashion now, and we're celebrating 50 years next year. So let's celebrate Colville's history too.
And also regarding that film as well, Industrial Light and Magic, you sort of did the models and stuff like that. Just spawned from that film, graphics that they come into, everything to do with SFX that they designed back then. They led the way with that with these films.
Well, yeah. So there's two things there. There's the models that they made. Industrial Light and Magic, you're completely correct. Were groundbreaking, and they invented a thing where the camera rolled along with the models, and that gave this idea that you were flying through this universe. But the other thing was the music. When
John Williams.
Yeah, when they cut this together without the music, and they showed it to George Lucas's friends, they literally were scratching their heads saying, "This is awful. This is terrible. What have you wasted your time on?" But when John Williams' music turned up and they put that with it, suddenly it became this majestical, fantastic space opera, this fight. And the same person obviously rescued Jaws, because Jaws, without the dun 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 dun, dun, you just imagine you see a fin.
Yep.
And you might hear, being played like, it's not going to scare you, is it? But you put that amazing score, and it's the same, dun 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 dun. You're instantly frightened. If you heard squeaky shoes and Darth Vader's cape flapping and no music, it's like, do you know what? It just reminds me of the Headmaster, and I'm not actually that bothered.
It's this bit, isn't it? It's this bit on the song when you suddenly sit there and your ears perk up when he sit there and he's like,
yeah. And I can't afford that in my film, unfortunately. You can play 20 seconds of it, and we're talking about it, so that's called fair use, so we're okay. But unfortunately, no. I think I'm going to be having some people playing ukuleles, unfortunately. But you never know.
I think that's a great idea. I reckon, like, knockoffs of all. I would. Do you know what? I can see this happening. I reckon this is Netflix bound. Because they can't have Star Wars, they can have something that mentions. You know how they did the toys from the yesteryear?
Yeah, well, look, Dave, there will be a songwriter in Colville that I'm sure can give Williams a run for his money. So if we've got somebody out there that can write us a tune, I'm all ears.
You know we've got links to brass bands, don't you?
That'd be great.
And it's a miners' town.
A colliery band playing the Star Trek theme for us over a Star Wars film would be brilliant.
Well, Mr. Graham Sutton, who does our movie music, is actually a conductor of some of these bands.
Right.
So there's ways of doing this for you, Matt.
Excellent. Well, at the minute, I've only got bus conductors, so if I can actually get a proper conductor of a band, then yeah, I'm in. The majestic Colville Brass Band marching us on down the street with our cameras and our spades over our back. That's the scene I want to see.
Well, you know what? We've got an event coming up in called Picnic in the Park in July.
Okay.
I sort of messaged you earlier.
Yeah.
Now, we host that, so we're in the middle of all of it, right? Mm-hmm. And if I'm right, if I remember correctly, on the Saturday or the Sunday,
right,
we actually have a brass band on stage.
Wow.
So I might make that call and see if they'll help us out.
Do you know what? If that person can conduct holding a lightsaber, I think we're on to a winner.
I've got LED flashing foam wands.
That's all right. You know, we'll nip down the bargain basement, see what we can get.
Right.
Anything, yeah. Bring your Star Wars helmets, bring your fancy dress outfits. Obviously, it's rebadged as cosplay, but I still call it fancy dress. You know, yeah. Let's get dressed up. Let's play a few tunes, and you never know, somebody might come out of the audience and tell us where these things are buried.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to bring my spade with me.
Yeah, bring your spades. That's it.
Just don't dig up the park because the council will hate us, but, you know.
No, we're going to get permission, don't worry. Everything will be above board. We'll dot all the I's and cross all the T's, don't worry. But the thing is, we're telling a story here. If you can get the imagination going, this is a treasure hunt, yeah? This is Indiana Jones. This is the Goonies, you know. If we go out there and make enough noise and tell enough people, somebody will go, oh, actually, you know, I think I remember that they're buried just down here. You know, it could happen. Stranger things have happened. Look, we found a king in a car park.
Yep.
Let's find the emperor in an old rubbish dump.
I do like the sound of it. And the thing is, this isn't your first film. You've done a few films in the past and stuff like that, so you know what you're doing.
This isn't my first rodeo, no. It's my third rodeo. No, it's, I've been lucky that I've been a professional filmmaker for 27 years. I started in radio when I was a kid, and I was inspired by people like, you wouldn't know these guys, Kenny Everett, and those kind of people.
Yep.
So I used to do radio sketch, comedy, bits and bobs. Then I went to university and did a foundation and decided I wanted to work in TV. Unfortunately, when I came back in the late 90s, Pebble Mill was closing, Central TV was closing, Lenton Lane, all these places that we used to have making TV was closing. So I had to set up on my own, and luckily I've been doing it ever since. And not just in Leicester, not just in the UK. I've travelled all over, and I've been telling this story to people all over the world. And believe me, if you watch the trailer, which I think you're going to share on your page, there's people in America.
It's already up there, mate. It's already up there.
There's people in America that know about Palatoy, and they know about the Star Wars Palatoy Pit and this quest. It's known all over the world, you know, so it's not really, this one's been an easy sell, to be honest. A lot of my other films have been quite difficult to get people to be interested in, but this is an easy sell. It's like, buried Star Wars figures in a Colville mining town, where do I sign? You know, oh yeah, I want to see this film. So, yeah, I've got the skills to pay the bills, put it that way, but this time I want to make a comedy. I want to, you know, there's serious stuff in here as well. There are facts and figures, Star Wars figures, but the facts and figures mixed around with some jokes and some messing about, because, you know, I love things like Shaun of the Dead. You know, I've been saying to people, this is the Full Monty meets Spinal Tap. You know,
I like that.
Yeah. You know, you've got to have fun. These are toys at the end of the day. You know, this is kids stuff. Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to grow up. You know, we grow older, but we don't. That's a given. We have to do that. But you don't necessarily have to grow up. And I think the people that are the most joyful people that you meet around Colville are the people that, you know, the child inside them is still there. They've still got the imagination, the creativity. They remember the good old days, but they'd also like to bring it back and entertain people with stories and all that kind of thing. And that's what I like. You know, there's some great storytellers, there's some great characters in Colville. And as we've been wandering around, there's been loads of laughter and people greeting us and people talking about the cinema when it was running and Woolworths and all this kind of stuff. And there's shops and stuff going now that are well behind us. You know, I'd like to see the Jacket Potato Shop selling Darth Taters. You know,
I love that as well.
I'd like to see every shop having like a Star Wars theme ready for when all these tourists come over with their money, and we can cash in on all these clever pun knockoffs that skate close to the wind of copyright, but just coming under the radar because we're doing it with a sense of humour and the parody that spitting image and all those kind of things allow us to poke fun at pomposity.
And you have to come in cosplay to the screening.
Yeah, but not necessarily Star Wars. Dress up like, put some tin foil on your head. I'm fine with somebody in a cardboard box that they've got the washing machine out of, and they're pretending to be, what's his name, WD-40.
Yeah, that WD-40.
Yeah, get your the pipes that that come with your Hoover and make them into arms and put some antenna on, and you be your own Colville robot. Let's stop this AI from taking over. Let's go back to handmade, cardboard cutouts and creativity. And I think that's the kind of stuff they can't take away from us. Anybody can do anything with AI, but can you make a robot out of cardboard and tin foil?
Give it a shot.
Exactly. This is the Blue Peter spirit.
You know what? The DIY sector are catching on. They've invented new characters. They've got CT1 now as well.
Right. This is what we want.
There you go.
Yeah. Hardware Wars. Hardware. Well, actually, if you look that up as well, the first Star Wars knockoff film that George Lucas found hilarious and gave them his blessing, was called Hardware Wars. And it was based around a hardware shop. And everything that was made out of bits and bobs and tins. And if you look that up on YouTube, that is a fantastic watch. And it proves that Mr. Lucas has a sense of humour, as we know with the Ewoks anyway.
Oh, yes, definitely.
He has a sense of humour. And he's already signed off on Spaceballs 2. He signed off on Hardware Wars. So you never know. He might give In a Landfill Far, Far Away his stamp of approval. And, he might come over. He might come to Colville.
I can see him wanting to see it, just to see what someone's done, especially with it being tied to his franchise in a completely different way.
Yeah. I mean, let's not forget, he was laughed at for the start with what, it was dismissed as a kid's film. It was a U. The early reviews were not very good. He actually tried to leave town. So he left, he was on his way out of Hollywood, and there was a massive traffic jam. He was going on holiday with Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg said, get out of town, get away from this, it's not going very, very well. There was a massive traffic jam because there was a queue across the street, and he said, what's the queue for? And they brought forward the screening of Star Wars for the Man's Chinese Theatre, and it was the queue for that. And it was an absolute success from the word of mouth got out there. They ignored the naysayers, and it was an absolute success from the start. So, People laugh at me,
But the thing is, you also sent me a link.
Great-grandson of a coal miner going around a place called Colville trying to dig up toys. Yeah, pull the other one. Yeah, that's going to be a great film to watch. Well watch this space. Literally
we're fully
space.
behind you, mate. We're fully behind you. And the best thing is, like you said, you sent me a link about a radio play as well that people forgot. I didn't even know it existed.
Well, that's the thing, we've got to imagine a time. This is 1977, this film came out, 50 years ago. So there was stuff like that, the radio play, which has Mark Hamill in it, and there was a public radio as well. So George Lucas, again, signed off on that, thought it would be great to get, people who can't go to see it at the cinema, probably couldn't afford it, maybe, can listen to Star Wars on the radio, and it was a big success. Again, a bit forgotten about now, just like Billy Burton is forgotten about. These things, they get replaced, and people move on to the next thing and on to the next thing. But that's why it's our duty as storytellers, as filmmakers, as archivists, as radio presenters or whatever, to remind people that there's a great history around the Midlands, there's a great history around Leicestershire, but Colville itself, is built on the mining history, the Palatoy history. And it's got a bright future as well, but you just got to believe in it, like a New Hope. Believe in it, and people might buy a ticket. And
the reason why I asked you to come on this morning was I forgot you were launching this today. It is May the 4th, but you have released the first trailer to A Landfill Far, Far Away.
Well, I must admit, I need to. That is not the first trailer.
Okay, teaser.
So back in 2018. I was told this story by a guy in a pub, and he said, I know you've just made a serious documentary, which I had about a girl who loses a leg. It was called No Fair. It was quite a harrowing film to make. He said, I know you've just made this film. He said, but I think you should make the buried Star Wars figures film. So I started with the idea of making a serious documentary. And then, of course, COVID hit. and no one was going anywhere. No one was watching films. And they certainly weren't going to be going digging for toys. So it was shelved, and I forgot about it really. But the story never went away, and people kept asking me, "Have you dug for those toys yet? Have you filmed anybody digging up the Palatoy toys yet?" It wouldn't go away, and so I'd got to the end of a toy series that we'd done on YouTube, where I'd made loads of friends in the Star Wars community, and I thought to myself, well, let's see if we can make this film, and let's make it with a bit of a sense of humour. Let's not do it as a po-faced documentary. Everybody's sitting in chairs talking about, the length of the wings on the X-wing or whatever. Let's make it not too detailed. Let's make it broad humour. Let's celebrate the fun of playing with toys and the fun of the story and all that kind of thing. And I think that's why it's captured people's imagination. And that's probably why you're talking to me now, because I think the people of Colville have got that kind of sense of humour and don't take themselves too seriously. And I think if you don't take yourself too seriously, you go a long way, really.
Well, this is your second time on the station, which makes you a friend of the station. So you're welcome back at any point in time. You've got our contact details. If you need help or stuff putting out there and anything, we're here to help.
Dave, put the advert out there now. Tell people, go and start looking in attics, in your garden. Start talking to your relatives. You know the stories that you've tutted at and rolled your eyes at Christmas time, and you've gone, oh, here we go. Listen more closely, because they might have the secret. They might know somebody that drove the bin lorry. That when the taxman wrote all this stuff off and it was buried, they might know where they are. So
Matt, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me in my office at the minute drinking a coffee. You can find us in a landfill far, far away on Facebook. It's been shared by all the great and the good of Colville, so you should be able to find it. But the company behind it is Spoon Jar Films, and that's a nod to my father, who's no longer with me, unfortunately, but he was a great Tommy Cooper fan and loved that sketch where he had spoon jar, spoon, yeah, da, 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 and he made the spoon dance. So Spoon Jar Films, think Tommy Cooper, Spoon Jar Films, and find us on there, find us on YouTube, get in touch, follow us, become a friend, and if you've got any stories, share them. We've already had a great story about a person in Sweden that bought a Millennium Falcon, and when they opened it, there was a note in there from somebody who'd been packing the Millennium Falcon saying, I've made thousands of these now, when do I get a free one? Signed, Derek. And, you
want to find Derek?
Yeah.
Or Derek's family?
Derek left a note in the Millennium Falcon in 1984, Is Derek still out there? Does he know where they're buried? There are loads of these stories which I think are just as fun as the buried Star Wars figures, but look high, look low. They might be in attics. They could be anywhere.
Well, Matt, thanks very much for joining me this morning. I thought it'd be quite funny to play a certain song just because of the films. But I've got to say, may the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you too, sir.
And this is the funny song, but it's quite a sad song. It's Father and Son by Boyzone.